Good morning. It is Wednesday, February 25th, 2015. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, ISIS abducts scores of Christians in northeastern Syria. With 19 days to elections in Israel, the battle over the country's democratic identity is heating up. And later on the show, Reuters celebrates 30 years of photojournalism. We take a closer look at the most iconic pictures of the past 3 decades. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi, and we are moving straight to the topic of the day. Syrians in northeastern Syria villages awoke yesterday to ISIS militants at their doors, with the Islamist extremists abducting scores of men, women, and children from the Christian group and forcing hundreds more to run for their lives. Now, according to reports of human rights advocates, those who managed to escape the onslaught took up refuge in St. Mary's Cathedral in Al-Hasaka, Syria, but are now stranded there with very little food or water. Now, this latest atrocity perpetrated by the Islamic State organization comes on the heels of another bloody week regionally that saw the Islamist group massacre dozens of Egyptian Coptic Christians in Libya, and Arab leaders around the Middle East holding conferences to discuss ways to combat ISIS, but with no progress made on that front at all. We're joined in studio by senior Middle East analyst at the Times of Israel, Avi Sischalv. Avi, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ann.
And of course, before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report with the latest on ISIS and discuss it from there.
Minorities in Syria are once again in jeopardy. According to the British-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, at least 90 Christians were kidnapped by the Islamic State in the northeastern region Tuesday. The abduction took place after the extremist Islamic group took over 2 Assyrian villages in the province of Hasakeh from the Kurdish forces. With these disturbing developments, it seems the IS is becoming even more of a major threat to minorities in the Middle East and perhaps beyond. A new UN report released on Monday reveals the horrific cost of the conflict in Iraq. The report says the direct targeting of civilians and indiscriminate attacks by IS and associated armed groups against civilians may amount to war crimes, crimes against humanity, and possibly genocide. Meanwhile, on the Iraqi front, the fighting is shifting to the city of al-Baghdadi at the Anbar province, as Iraqi forces move forward to push the IS out the town. The city is seen as a major strategic point due to its proximity to the El Assad air base, where US Marines are training Iraqi troops. New US Secretary of Defense Ashton Carter, who visited the Gulf countries last week, has said that the defeat of the IS can and will be accomplished.
Achieving the lasting defeat of ISIL will require a combined diplomatic and military effort.
But as history shows, it may be too early to come out with hasty predictions. Mission may be accomplished, but without beating around the bush, it's not yet clear when and how.
Also joining us from Cairo is I-24 News contributor there, Jake Wirtschafter. Jake, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. First, though, stay with us. I want to start straight with Avi Sischalv, Times of Israel, senior Middle East analyst. Okay, when it comes to this latest onslaught of ISIS, the new attack was reported in the portion of Syria that's less than 150 miles west of Mosul, Iraq. So we're looking at the region, and correct me if I'm wrong, or that area that's being really battled on between ISIS and local fighters. But what does it tell us about their progress, about the group's progress?
Not much. I must say that what we see on the ground is the opposite, meaning they are losing. They are withdrawing from all around Syria, Iraq, and I know that you hear different voices, but at the end of the day, yes, they are withdrawing. They are going back. They are losing battles inside Syria and Iraq. In Iraq, there's no doubt about that, but even inside Syria. Now, just imagine yourself, this is a huge territory in northeast Syria and central Syria. It's a deserted area, and villages. You see villages from here and there. So the minute that they withdraw from one city or the other, they go immediately to the other village. They slaughter the local population over there, and then they run from there also. So it doesn't mean that they are winning. And we need to pay attention for that, because then again, my crazy estimation, let's say, define it like that. In a couple of months, maybe in 3, maybe in 4, their power would be much less than it is right now. And I know that we look at ISIS, but ISIS is not that big and strong.
No, I mean, that's a very, very valid point, but I think it's the million-dollar questions because analysts are battling amongst themselves about that exact point. Are they winning or are they losing? When it comes to this latest onslaught, though, and I'm wondering out loud, because when they come to a village like where an Assyrian community lives, and, you know, they slaughter, kidnap, whatnot, it sounds, though, from all reports that the only people really combating them are the Kurdish Peshmerga, who, you know, according to these recent reports, those are the only people who are actually on the ground trying to fight ISIS.
Look, if we had a map, and maybe I could show some points on the map, but West Syria, North Syria is in the hands of Bashar al-Assad. They're not trying to operate over there. Maybe in Aleppo, yes, but the main land of the west coast, of the west strip of the Syrian coast, it's in the hands of Bashar al-Assad. So where do they operate? They mainly concentrate on the east-north side of Syria, because up in the south it's Jabhat al-Nusra, it's other opposition members, and Hezbollah who's fighting Jabhat al-Nusra and others. So at the end of the day, we find ISIS at northeast Syria, we find ISIS at northwest Iraq, and over there they do fight with the Kurds. Now the Kurds, then again, they do not operate everywhere. They operate on Kurdish territory. So
or they would like to be.
So in villages like Hasakeh, like other places in Syria, it's no man's land. And ISIS is the best in no man's land.
And that's where they operate best. But speaking of being best in no man's land, there's the coalitions that are trying to be formed to fight ISIS in and around the region. People will argue they're not making that much progress. And when we're looking at last week, and Jake, we're going to start with you on that one. We're looking at last week and, you know, the dozens of Egyptian Christians that were slaughtered in Libya, and then reports coming afterwards that thousands of Egyptian Christians are fleeing Libya because it seems that, you know, ISIS is gaining traction there. Sisi giving a very important speech at the beginning of the week. Jake, can we say that Sisi is trying to emerge as the Arab leader that will take on ISIS in the region, or is every Arab leader using rhetoric in speeches to try and become that type of a leader?
I think, and I'm going to put on my analyst hat and use overused metaphors to describe this.
Go for it.
So what I'm seeing here is that Egypt is doing this in coordination with the Saudis, and I think it's important to underscore the Saudi role together with Sisi's positioning of himself as the leader. And the metaphor I would use is that Egypt and Saudi Arabia are in the kitchen cracking eggs to make an omelet. There's an elephant in the room and there's a mouse in the room. The elephant in the room is the Iranians and the mouse in the room is the Qataris. And we're focused here on the mouse, and the Saudis are focused on the elephant. And everybody from the Syrian president to the Israeli prime minister is throwing spaghetti on the wall about ISIS. And the Arab moderate leaders are trying to scrape off the spaghetti in order to put it into the omelet.
Interesting. No, I mean, this is one of the best metaphors I've heard when it comes to describing ISIS. And Avi Yisachar in the studio will agree. But let's look at that coalition for a second. And Avi, I'm wondering with you when it comes to Sisi. At the beginning of the week, also, it's simultaneously to Geneva talks about Iran, there was a conference that was held in Saudi, a so-called, you know, anti-terrorism conference. Is this something that really the Saudis are trying to do, or is ISIS playing into the hands of everybody? And can there, you know, same question to you, can there be an Arab leader in the region that can be the leader, so to speak, on the battle against this group?
Yes, there can, and probably Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is, you know, the one
to
be the fourth runner. I guess that he's going to concentrate in Libya, in Egypt, in Sinai Peninsula, but at the end of the day in Syria and Iraq, that's very far from home for him. And, you know, you cannot... I cannot see King Abdullah of Jordan standing up and saying, I will lead the fight against ISIS in Syria and Iraq. This is not going to happen. This is why, you know, Syria and Iraq, it's going to take time. In Libya, in Egypt, in Sinai, we see a very determined leader, Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, who's leading the war against that. Now, I completely agree with the saying that at the end, we all understand that when Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is saying we need a coalition, we need an Arab coalition, it's not necessarily about ISIS. What he has in mind, what King of Saudi Arabia has in mind, what even Abdullah of Jordan has in mind, it's Iran. It's Iran. They're afraid, they're terrified from Iran. I think that they know that they understand that they can deal with ISIS.
Right.
With Iran, That's a very big challenge for them.
No, that's the very big issue, but I'm wondering, and Jake, with you out loud, and then when it comes to the airstrikes that were being carried out in Libya against ISIS targets, I mean, is there a notion that from Egypt, that Egypt is going to continue with, and I'm calling really, strikes in the next several weeks? Are they going to take on a battle when it comes to what happened right now in Syria with the Assyrian battles? But that's not something that Sisi's saying, is it?
Egypt came out with a statement yesterday very critical of the Western states and their lack of support for an Egyptian initiative to do something about Libya. As you pointed out, Libya isn't just an ideological issue here or a security issue here. It's an economic issue. There are so many migrant workers from Egypt, from the Delta, and from the south of Egypt that have jobs in Libya.
Right.
And if those people cannot send back remittances because the lack of a state there, that creates an additional economic problem for Egypt. So the disappointment here is palatable about the lack of Western support for an active Egyptian role in striking ISIS in Libya. And the statement that came out from the foreign ministry here yesterday said that it's very naive to think that any political accord can quickly solve the issue in Libya. And Egypt is looking for a quick resolution in Libya. They saw Syria play out. And the timeline that the Americans have, and we saw that yesterday in the discussions with Obama and the leader of Qatar, the Qatari Emir. And the language is so long-term and long timetable vision. And Egypt is looking for something much faster in Libya than what the West seems to have put together regarding Syria.
No, it's a fascinating point, but the language that is long-term leads me actually to, put Avi Yisrael on the spot yet again. When we look at long-term, the Americans supposedly have promised that come June or May, the Iraqi army, a stronger Iraqi army, a better trained Iraqi army, is going to take on ISIS, in and around those areas like Mosul. They're going to liberate Mosul. Is that even feasible? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, both you and I know that the Iraqi army is not really existent.
I agree with that. I must say that I think that Mosul, if at some point will be deliberate from the ISIS control, I think it would be by the Kurds, first of all, and then by the Shiite militias that are coming from the south, and they are part of the Iraqi army. But bottom line, we need to be honest about it, and I heard what the U.S. had to say yesterday about Yemen. We need to understand that the map of the Middle East had changed. That's it. There's no more Iraq. There's no more Iraqi army. There's no more Yemen. There's no more Yemenite army. There's no more Libya. There's no more Syria. Yeah. We need to understand there's a new map of the Middle East, and over there we shouldn't expect even the Iraqi army or the Yemenite army or the Libyan army or whatever. It's going to be different militias, different groups fighting for the control over some territory in the Middle East.
Which, one wonders who will define it internationally, but, just to culminate this, when you say at the beginning of this interview that, you will make a prediction that in 3 or 4 months we will see ISIS losing ground, then why are the Americans and the Western communities talking about a long-term haul of battle against this group?
Look, because it's not short-term. It's not going to last for days or weeks. It's something very big, and at the end of the day, they do not send troops on the ground. They don't have boots on the ground. I think that they will continue because they are winning. They're winning together with the Kurds, together with the Shiite militias that for the meanwhile they're slaughtering Sunnis on the way, but they are doing some progress over there from the south. At the end of the day, I think they're winning together with the Jordanian Air Force, the Egyptian Air Force. Everyone are joining forces, and it's working slowly, not like we used to do it in Israel. We need to do everything fast. Over there, it's slowly in the Middle East.
Time takes time.
Yes, and at the end of the day, I think that they will win it. What will happen after that, after the release of Mosul, I don't think that, ISIS ideas will be gone. And that's the real danger here. It's not the organization. The organization, it's not the threat. The ideology and the idea is the threat.
Is the threat that will remain entrenched on the ground. Avi Yisrael, fascinating stuff as always. Thank you for joining us. Jake Wertschafter, also in Egypt, with us this morning. Thank you for being with us as we move along. The upcoming Israeli elections are already historic because for the first time ever, we are seeing the coming together of a united slate made up of the various Arab factions. Now, forced to join forces due to the raising of the minimum threshold, Israel's traditionally fractured Arab parliamentary representatives came together and are now on the verge of being the country's third or fourth largest party, which, if the political stars align correctly, might even see them leading the opposition after the results of the elections come March 17th in the country. Now, the following report takes a closer look at one of the main contenders on that list, one of the most interesting contenders, as far as I'm concerned, Touma Sliman herself, who is with us in studio as well. Let's first take a look at that report and break it down from there.
On March 17th this year, a newly announced political party could yet make a considerable impact on Israeli politics. The launch of the joint list for the Israeli parliament came as a surprise to many. Aida Touma Sliman is no stranger to the challenges this effort involved.
This is a cooperation between four parties that have different ideological perspectives. One of the things that we had to go through is to find what is common between us.
And it seems that one thing the Arab parties had in common was a political enemy. Newly passed laws by representatives of the Israeli far right have put the singular Arab parties at risk of failing to gather enough votes.
Raising the threshold for the Knesset has been a situation or a law that meant to keep the Arabs away from the Knesset. This time we had to cooperate faster and to do the joint list in order to come back to the Knesset even stronger than before.
Placed at number 5 in the new joint list, Touma Sliman is now the highest-ranking Arab woman running for parliament. But statistics show that the number of Arab citizens who choose to cast their ballots has been steadily decreasing over the years.
We are more disappointed of the system. I think what should be changed is the political Israeli culture. It makes the Arabs in Israel feel alienated.
But Touma Sliman is not counting solely on the Arab vote, but also on the Jewish voters likely to support the new list.
Israeli Jews have been disappointed of the system because actually all the political map among the Zionist party has went to the right. And those who thought that they were in the center found themselves actually in the right wing.
One day after the announcement of the merger, Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman from the Israel Beitenu party announced he will appeal to ban the joint list from running in the elections.
Lieberman is in a big problem. The law that he legislated for us to ban us from getting to the Knesset, he might be the one to be hurt from that.
After several attempts of bringing together the various Arab parties in Israel across their ideological and economic differences, the parties have now united into one front. The only hope now is that this unity will translate into the Arab street.
You don't have to choose between the Zionist camp or the national camp. You can choose to be on the democratic camp.
I'm very honored, very pleased, and very happy to be joined in studio by Aida Touma Sliman. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for asking.
I want to start with, a question that has been, is on my mind as a woman. You're an Arab woman, okay, and living in the Middle East, and you chose to enter politics. That's like the trifecta of things that cannot succeed in many, many, many ways, if we're talking about the Middle East and even Israel as we're looking at it. What was behind the idea of entering politics to begin with?
Well, let's start before that. You forgot I'm an Arab woman living in Israel and living in the Middle
exactly.
East.
You are, de facto, a second-class citizen that, we cannot argue with. So,
yeah,
what is the decision?
I think the decision came exactly right after I understood the complicity of being all of that. Meaning being all of that makes you look at things differently, that makes you more critical to things that are happening around you. And if you are a person who really loves life and human beings, you want to change these things. You want to change them for better. This sounds very romantic, but this is realistic also. I mean, if you want to promote anywhere, if you want to be effective and to change things, and I usually say I discovered that the Israeli crowd think that politics is the parliament. I've been in politics all my life. Politics is much more than only the Knesset. The Knesset is one tool that we use in order to do the change we are looking for.
And speaking of the change that you're looking for, I think, many people have said it. I personally find the joint list, the joint Arab list, one of the most fascinating things in these elections, because I think the Arab list has managed to do something that the Israeli lists have not in many years. But, at the end of the day, I think the joint list, the fact that you're running in order to running as a joint list, that, and I'm asking you, that most likely you are not going to enter the government. So what is the agenda when you're running, if it's not to govern? What are you hoping to achieve?
Well, let me say first that the most interesting thing also about it, when you remember that it is a joint list, not only among the Arabs themselves, it's a Jewish Arab list.
It's a Jewish Arab list.
Which meaning the Arabs are joining forces also with the democratic Jewish forces. That's, I think, the most interesting thing in our list. What we are looking for, being the third force in the parliament, in the Knesset, and I'm saying that confidently. We are not going to be the fourth. We will be the third. And I think this is by itself. We are seeing the effect of it right now. We are more heard. People are looking to hear what we have to say as the third force in the Knesset, which we didn't have before. Second, I think, we will be able, hopefully, to be the ones who can decide upon many things, even without joining the government.
There's a clear chance that if this proceeds according to polls, that the joint list is going to be might be the leader of the opposition in the Knesset.
Yes.
And then,
yes, that's a new, let's say, a new era, new era in Israel. Not because it's, first of all, because it gives us a more space to speak up and to deliver our messages in a clear way to the general public. What we are trying here to do is to affect and to change the way the people in Israel, the mainstream, think about different issues, not about the Arabs only, but about democracy, about peace, about social justice. We have the idea of bringing a new total approach to how problems in this country are going to be solved, especially that all the other governments that have been established till now failed to give any answer to those issues.
Not only failed, but I think that many people in Israel are looking at the next elections as the battle for the democratic color, if so to speak, or the democratic nature of the country. And it is no secret, and I'm asking you aloud, it's no secret that over the course of the last several years, the right wing in Israel has gained a lot of power. That the whole notion of who is an Israeli or who is, a real citizen in this country is one of the main issues of this elections. What are the dangers in that? And do you think there is a chance, and putting all the idealistic, and you are very idealistic, slogans aside, given the fact that some of the parties like the Jewish Home in these upcoming elections are going to try and push the agenda of determining who is a citizen, what can the joint list do?
Well, first of all, I think the Jewish Home and the Lieberman's party have been trying to push, and you know what? Not only them, even the Likud, Netanyahu have led the nationality law. I think what is done has been very dangerous, and it needs people to speak up and to decide: do they want this country to continue to be driven to the right more and more and to be less and less democratic, or do we want this country to be a real democratic state? There is no way that we will be silent about the fact of delegitimizing us as 20% of the whole citizens of Israel. And now I'm speaking as an Arab person. And there is no way that we should keep silent about the fact that less and less people are able to speak up in this country or to express their views. I think that as a leading force, as third force in the Knesset, we are able to fight back against such laws, such in my opinion, not only discriminative, but also racist laws.
And we have to see the proposed nationality law of who is...
Yes, who is...
Who is exactly
because you have to understand, first it might start with the nationality law, and then they will start to look who is Jew and who is, I don't know, who is right-wing, and who... This is a racist approach that starts with maybe what is called the less powerful, the Arabs, but it continues further and further. And everybody should be aware of that and should understand, if you don't try to protect the rights of the Arabs at this point, you will not find anybody to be your ally to protect your rights later on.
If somebody tries to take those away.
Yes.
Was it hard to join? I mean, the list joined under mostly that umbrella, but I'm wondering out loud with you, was it hard to join that list in the diverging ideas of the specific Arab Jewish parties? And is that the thing that's really leading, just the identity of that, the identity and the democratic identity of the country in the future?
Well, to join the list was an effort done by the four parties, and I have to say that it translated also a wish of the Arab population and some democratic forces that we need to be more effective, and right. We want, of course, it started by the fact that of making the threshold higher and being afraid that our representation might, not be there in the Knesset. I think the fact of targeting not even to survive, but to become even stronger, led the idea of becoming a joint list. That made a lot of the obstacles just put aside and to deal with what is common. And there are a lot.
Yeah, there are a lot of things.
There's a lot in common.
No, and I think the numbers currently, if we are to judge from the recent polls, the numbers currently are showing, that was achieved in many ways. That, getting more power, that was achieved. Sadly, this is all the time we have, Aida, because I think it's commendable and amazing, no matter from what origin or where one comes from, to see a woman making such progress in the political atmosphere of the Middle East. Thank you so much for being with me this morning. When we get back, same topic. Is Israel a democratic Jewish state or a Jewish democratic state? With 19 days to elections, a closer look on that controversial questions that is one of the main questions of the upcoming elections. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning, I-24 News on this February 25th, 2015. I'm looking at Ruthie Sinai to double check the date.
Yeah,
absolutely. It would be February 25th, 2015.
Yes, 3 days to go.
Always a pleasure to have you with us, Ruthie, because you not only fact check me on the news, but you give us the news that we missed while scanning the headlines.
Yes.
What did we miss?
Well, we missed a lot of things. So let's go first to New York Times headline, which will come up in a minute.
Yes, here we go.
There we go. And we've got Islamic State, what would we do without them for news, unfortunately. Kidnapping 90 Assyrians. Do you know who Assyrians are?
No, and I'm glad you're bringing it up in that point. We did touch on ISIS before because they are making traction, so it seems, but now yet again a Christian group, right?
A Christian group.
Who are the Assyrians?
The Assyrians are very ancient people. Some would say they go as far back as Jesus. And they were a majority, actually, in this part of Syria, northeast Syria, until the Arab tribes started moving in the 19th century. They're a relatively small minority, but, like the Yazidis in Iraq, a very persecuted minority. 90 of their people kidnapped, God knows, and heaven help them.
And heaven help them, and no, definitely, and hundreds also fleeing and stranded somewhere, on the outskirts of Syria.
Absolutely. Horrible,
yes,
horrible.
Moving along.
All right. So, we always have these visions of what spies do when they get together, how it all works, and we watch movies. cities and stuff. So there are these cables being leaked, out of the South African intelligence service.
Hundreds of cables, right?
Hundreds, yeah. It's not as major as Snowden, but it's fairly big. Unlike Snowden, these are human intelligence. This is not signals intelligence, and so there's a lot of goodies in there. One of the things it's on Al Jazeera and The Guardian. It's a joint project. One of the things it has to do with a meeting in 2012 in East Jerusalem between a South African intelligence agent and a CIA operative, and it starts out they're talking about tennis and travel and stuff.
Right.
And then they get to the good stuff where essentially the American tells the South African, listen, we really need ties to Hamas, which in parentheses the U.S. considers a terrorist organization. Can you help us? You guys have good contacts with these people. Can you guys help us? And the South African is cabling back to his government and saying, I think we should help him because it could help us in the future with the Americans. So, quid pro quo.
No, quid pro quo, and it's not shocking, but what it's great to see, though. I know it's great to see, is my personal opinion. I probably should not have said that. That there is an attempt. There is an attempt to bridge between, to get through to a group that, clearly is banned and is a terrorist group, but not. Yeah. But if we don't sit down and talk, then where do we stand? A moment of reflection.
Agreed.
Yes,
Agreed.
Moving on.
All right, moving on to a story that I know you like, which has to do with Trayvon Martin. I don't know if people remember, way before Ferguson, Missouri, 2 years before that, there was a shooting by a security guard, a neighborhood watch, of a 17-year-old unarmed black man named Youth. Trayvon Martin, the guy who shot him, a guy named Zimmerman, claimed that he felt threatened, et cetera, et cetera. Now the Justice Department has decided, Holder, in his waning days as Attorney General, has decided he will not prosecute Zimmerman because he's saying essentially that the legal standards required to prove such violation under civil rights. A civil rights violation are too high and cannot be met, basically.
And sadly, though, too high cannot be met. But I think that's something that you and I discuss many times when we do, segments about racism, or be it, racial divide in the United States. Then I'm sure yet again this will be accepted as once again the system is pro the whites against the black.
Under a black administration, a black attorney general.
A black attorney general. Wow.
Yep.
Yes. No. Valid point. Yes.
Okay. Moving on. We were talking yesterday about how is it that 15-year-old British girls go to join IS, Islamic State. So how is it, as Al Arabiya reports, that a teenage 15-year-old Nigerian girl goes to blow herself up at a bus station in Nigeria, probably sent by Boko Haram, which is sort of, the Islamic State version of Africa. It's many more than 15, apparently 27 dead by now. This was the initial report. And the atrocities there just don't stop.
No, don't stop, and it's important. I'm glad you brought that headline because it's important to, as you said, that Boko Haram is the ISIS of Africa, not stopping.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And what it's doing to when young kids are being sent to blow themselves up, it's sadly very reminiscent of what we remember from this region. Yes. And doom and destruction forward. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So we probably should have dealt with this following segment, a Washington Post story about transgenders in the U.S. military. We should have dealt with the Holder story. But anyway, new Secretary of Defense in the States. He goes to Afghanistan, meets U.S. troops, and somebody in the audience says to him, so what's your policy on transgenders serving in the military now that the ban on don't ask, don't tell has been lifted? And he says, well, I just think it's a good idea. I don't think we should judge people by, what they do in their bedroom or wherever. I think they should be judged by what kind of, whether they can serve their country well. And basically, more than hinting that the Pentagon is going to review this policy and probably lift that ban.
Listen, amen, although I don't want anybody being shipped over to the Middle East to fight ISIS.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah. There's a different one. And
okay, so you probably would have been surprised to be walking on the Champs-Élysées and to see a drone above your head.
There too.
Okay. But this is what happened. At least 5 sightings of mystery drones over Paris Eiffel Tower, you know, all the hot spots. It's amusing, but it's also not so amusing. About a month or two ago, an Israeli was caught flying a drone with a GoPro camera to take, you know, snapshots, you know, holiday snaps of his trip to Paris. Nice. He was arrested and then he was released.
I guess everything is, these are what, like personal drones?
Yeah. Everybody should. You don't have one? Everybody should have one.
So it's like, I'm yet to purchase a drone. I was thinking Amazon is sending drones all over the world. There's that to drop books on there. Lovely. But listen, after doom and destruction, it's always good to, you know, to know that we can all one day own a drone.
Absolutely. Own a drone, yes.
Ruthie Sinai.
One
last.
Okay, allergy to peanuts, very important.
Yes.
Research shows that babies who are exposed to peanuts don't develop allergies to peanuts.
Really?
Later on in life, yes.
Okay,
and you as a mother
so everything we knew
this.
is completely void. That means that next year they'll come up with the statement that you can smoke throughout pregnancy.
Maybe.
Might be. Okay, we have that. Ruthie Sinai, thank you so much for being with us this morning. Moving along, staying though in Israel and the upcoming elections. Israel's democratic and national identity has been dubbed one of the main issues in the elections the country is holding in 19 days. Israeli society, or at least significant parts of it, are seeking to bolster its national identity, and many parties, mainly on the right of the political dial, are using the issue as a major campaigning platform. A proposed law called the Nationality Bill, in which seeks through legislation to prioritize Israel's Jewish character over its democratic one, was a topic of major debate shortly before elections were called. It was not necessarily the trigger for the elections, but it did indicate where the public's mind is at the upcoming runoff to form a new government may turn out to be a referendum on that incredibly complex issue and question the Israeli public is dealing with. Joining me in studio to further discuss this is the director of the Israel Movement for Reform and Progressive Judaism, Reform Rabbi and attorney Gilad Kariv. Rabbi Kariv, good morning and thank you for being with us. Before we break it down, let's take a look at the following report by Mandy Kokosowski and take it down from there.
A Jewish democratic state does not mean a democratic state only for the Jews. This is something I will not tolerate. This statement, recently made by Israeli President Reuven Rivlin, highlights one of the strongest issues that have plagued the country since its formation. Can it be both Jewish and democratic at the same time, without one value overshadowing, even conflicting with, the other? While the Jewish democratic question might not be topping the current elections campaign's agenda, this topic is constantly bubbling right beneath the surface, ready to explode with the slightest provocation. First, there is the Jewish-Arab dichotomy. Though Israel's Arab minority, which makes up roughly 20% of the population, enjoys formal rights as citizens, including the right to vote and to be elected, no Arab party has ever been part of the government. The Arab population suffers various forms of discrimination, ranging from poor infrastructure, through profiling, to attacks by Jewish citizens and politicians who believe that this land should, first and foremost, be Jewish. In these upcoming elections, for the first time, Israel's small Arab parties joined forces and established the Joint List, which according to recent surveys is supposed to become the third or fourth largest party, and thus a force to be reckoned with. But the Jewish-Arab question is only one aspect of the larger Jewish democratic question. Other issues, like civil marriage, public transportation on the Sabbath, treatment of migrants, the authority of the courts, and increasing racism within the public, are all divisive issues in a society seemingly being split into two. With the ballots right around the corner, one must wonder whether everything will stay the same, or if perhaps Israel might take a step further in determining its true character.
Also joining us on the phone is former Likud Minister Moshe Feiglin. Mr. Feiglin, thank you for being with us. And of course, and I want to start though with Rabbi Kariv first. Rabbi Kariv, you, on the opposite dial of former Minister Feiglin, is the Jewish identity in Israel of these days, do you think that it should proceed, that it should come before the democratic identity?
No way. I think that the only way of the Jewish people to justify its claim, its historic and moral claim for an independent state, it's by ensuring its democratic character and by making it very clear that the non-Jewish citizens of Israel enjoy full equality. And the truth is that in recent years, it's not the Jewish character of the state of Israel who is under attack, but rather its democratic character. And if we need to be troubled by something, is by the need to strengthen Israel's democracy. I'm quite confident in Israel's Jewish character, although I think that many things should be repaired in the way we address our Jewish character. I'm deeply troubled from the things I saw in the last Knesset and what I think we'll see in the next Knesset in regard to the democratic fabric of
the Israeli society. On the phone, as we mentioned, former Likud member Likud Minister Moshe Feiglin. Mr. Feiglin, when it comes to what Rabbi Karev just said, you know, when it comes to the identity of Israel, how do you propose to explain to voters or, you know, to the Israeli public that the Jewish identity is more important than the democratic identity?
Good morning, first of all.
Good morning.
I don't think there's a conflict between the two. I think that as more Jewish the Israeli state is, more democratic it is. I don't see conflict between the two. I see exactly the opposite. I think that the state of Israel was created as a Jewish state, as Ben Gurion declared in Tel Aviv in 1948. It was established as a Jewish state, the only state of the Jewish people. It has an 80% of Jews. When you attack the basic concept of the state, you attack the democracy. When you try and basically to steal the identity of the state against the will of the people, I cannot see anything that is more against democracy than that.
Yeah, but when it comes to, you know, let's start with that, Karev, you know, if a law such as the Jewish identity or the Jewish nationality bill is passed, doesn't that automatically put aside, what, 20% of the current population of the country?
In many ways. Let's start by the fact that according to the legislation, the proposed legislation, the traditional Jewish law, the halacha, should have become the source of inspiration to the work of the Knesset. We can continue with the fact that the suggested legislation doesn't even mention the fact that we have non-Jewish citizens. Now, I'm not trying to claim that this basic law, proposed basic law, will destroy the Israeli democracy, but definitely it will change the delicate balance that was achieved in the basic laws of 1992. It will change the balance. And I think, again, when you examine the current situation, the thing that we need to be worried by is the democratic character of the State of Israel, the status of our free media, the balance between the different branches of government, the issue of civil education in Israel, the fact that young Israeli Jews do not meet young Israeli Arabs and there are no relations between the two communities. Those are the things that we need to be troubled by. And the question is, what do we mean by saying that we have a Jewish state? Do we mean that we want to integrate pieces of the ancient traditional Jewish law into the democratic system? Take, for example, the issue of marriage and divorce. There are no civil marriage and divorce in Israel. This is the only Western democratic character in the world that does not allow people to choose the way they want to establish a family or to go through a divorce process. The other option, and I think this is the true meaning of a Jewish state, is that we have a Jewish majority, we have the law of return, Hebrew is the spoken language, and that is the meaning of having a Jewish state.
Sadly, you know, we could debate this, and Mr. Feiglin, thank you for joining us. Sadly, all the time we have, because we can debate this over and over again, but it is one of the major sticking points, the identity of the Jewish state in the coming years of these elections. Rabbi Karev, thank you so much for being with us. When we get back, visuals, something different. Reuters celebrates 30 years of photojournalism, a closer look at the most iconic pictures from the past 3 decades. First, though, as in every morning, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Thank you for staying with us, joining us, and staying and sticking around on this February 25th, 25th?
I am so bad with this.
I'm putting you on the spot.
Don't. Just never ask me the date.
February 25th, 2015. This is still the morning edition. I am still Yael Avi, and thank you for staying with us. Why? Because it's 30 years, guys, since Reuters launched its picture service that plays a key role in distributing powerful photojournalism publication around the world, and also every single image that you see on this channel. Yes. In days where every iPhone is actually a potential camera, it is more interesting than ever to discuss the role and impact of photojournalism. And we are very happy to be joined in studio by senior photo editor in Reuters Jerusalem Bureau, Sharon Perry. Sharon, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you for being with us yet again.
My
No, lovely to have you. And it's 30 years. And also, by the way, in studio, Amit Kling, I have to introduce you so you can interject.
Hi,
there
hello.
you go. Good morning.
Hi, Mike.
But, Sharon, let's start with you. Photojournalism, you brought some images also to our attention to take, to take a look at. So let's start by actually seeing the first one and what is going on. Do we have those images? Coming up. Okay. Well, there we go. Okay. Well, first of all, Reuters marking 30 years of existence. And I'm looking at these pictures, and this is, for example, a montage. But when it comes to photojournalism, let's start with that. What is the key, in your mind, as a photo editor? What is the key thing to remember when you look at a picture?
I think that the key thing to remember is that take the photograph in the context of the story, and I think I think that's what separates a photojournalist also from an amateur and being able to really capture the moment and translate that for the viewer and have a newsworthiness to it, and not just I mean, it could also just be a lighthearted picture, but usually there's a lighthearted picture within a larger context.
Within a larger context.
And I think that photojournalists are also journalists, and I think that's also an important aspect to remember.
No, completely. And we asked you to choose several pictures to, to take a look at and pinpoint what it means, because, photojournalism, I personally think it's the best form of telling a story, especially in this day and age. But let's take a look at the first picture.
Okay, so this is what? This is a picture that was taken in 2006 in the Canary Islands. And just the contrast of the picture in my mind is just amazing.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a migrant who is crawling on the beach.
Possibly looking for food or God knows what.
I mean, basically, it shows the plight of them, of their desire to arrive in Europe. And the struggle and the contrast in the back of sunbathers is just amazing, and also the motion of the crawling on the sand, and you see the bottoms of his feet, and
it's exactly
I feel like it's a very telling image.
It's this instant moment that it takes you actually a second before you realize what is going on in the picture.
Yes.
That you look at it for the first time, and it just sinks in a second later. But as we said, we asked you to bring several photos that you think capture best, what photojournalism means, where it stands today. So let's take a look at the next picture, because.
Okay, so this is an iconic image from 9/11. Taken in New York City, of course, by Shannon Stapleton. It's just, the dust of clouds, the clouds of dust, and the man slumped over in his chair, who later, it turns out, was the first reported victim of 9/11.
Really?
Yes. He was a fire department chaplain that later on was one of the first reported deaths.
Now, what makes the picture iconic?
I think the moment, the composition, the story, and in this case, this is one of the biggest
stories of the 21st
so I think that's part of it. He captured a really that moment. He was there when it happened, amid all the chaos, and the photographer gets there, and it's not always easy to get to the scene of these types of events. So being there is really important. The instinct of knowing when to take a picture is something that's
exactly.
ingrained.
Other than just being on location, which I think we all agree. I mean, that's the first point of first be there.
Yeah.
That's the one thing. Just get there. But what makes a good
success, right?
Exactly. What makes a good photojournalist?
I think it's a combination of all the elements of, obviously his ability to take a good picture technically. I think foreseeing something that's going to happen, perhaps, like I said before, understanding the context of the larger story, and your instinct in being hyper aware of everything going on around you, looking,
And in these days,
and
I want to ask you, because we're looking at these amazing pictures that clearly, you looked at it, you see that it's the eye of a professional, as you said, iconic images being there, these, portraying. But in this day and age, where every, let's state it, where every brat has a cell phone, okay? Where every brat has,
Please don't point at me when you say that.
Where every brat, just like this man here, but where every brat has a cell phone, the filters would not, I'm not going to touch specifically on Instagram, so not to be sued. What has it done to the profession of photojournalism?
Well, I think as a whole, the whole digital age has really changed, the process of taking pictures, filing pictures, getting them out to the clients. But at the end of the day, I really believe that what makes a picture a strong image and an iconic image hasn't really changed. I don't think that...
But does the audience think that the same way? I'm wondering out loud with you.
I think so. I think that, at the end of the day, it does matter who's behind the camera. I really do believe that.
I mean, is photojournalism in danger of I'm not saying, are photojournalists in danger of losing their jobs? That's what I'm asking.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I definitely feel that business is changing.
Yeah.
However, what makes an image powerful and telling hasn't changed, and I think that photojournalists can do that probably better.
And we want to go back to one more picture that you picked. Oh my
yes.
Lord.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. This is a picture from 2008. Taken during the
Georgia?
Taken during the conflict between Russia and Georgia, and like we were talking before, it's not always easy to get to these types of places, and this is pure chaos. The photographer managed to also be in a very intimate angle, like he's down on the ground.
You can see that this is coming. Yeah.
And it's just a very strong moment, and I very pure, raw. Sad moment,
no,
and I think
raw, but
there's fire in the background. The man is embracing his brother who apparently was killed, and it takes you right in there.
It takes you straight into it, and it's terribly important to see these things, especially when you see conflicts like Georgia, horrific. But in any conflict or everybody, you see that, you also think, my God, it's that intimate moment that he's in, that he has to snap, which is incredibly hard also.
Yeah, and keep it all together and think clearly and look around him and be safe and know what's going on and understand.
Also in many ways steal that intimacy between the two people. It's a bit of a stealing of that emotion.
It's telling a story. You can't do it without being there when it happens.
One picture before we move on.
Of course.
One last picture, which would be this. Yes. Wow, yeah. I took that one. Yeah, this is April 9th. I'll give you the exact date. It's April 9th, 2003.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, in Iraq. This is a statue of Saddam Hussein, which is being brought down. This, in my mind, is pure history, iconic image.
These days, I think we can say that the way we thought this was history in 2003, today when we look at that, it's a completely different history, in many ways. It's the fall of that, the rise of what, but.
It's still for that moment. It's in my mind. Just the composition. You see the statue falling. The hand is exactly where. Right at the bottom of the frame, you see the American soldier. It's not. It's
it's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. Very well composed and very telling image.
Sharon Perry, I want to thank you for being with us. We're going to lock you in the studio because the next bit is the most important one in the show. So we're going to move along.
Okay.
Yeah. And for the spiral viral that is the Web Review, we are now joined by the Unabomber.
No, you can say that. You can say that.
I'm sorry, Amit, I've been dying. Amit Kling, ladies and gentlemen, of the I-24
Unabomber.
News. Yeah, Unabomber. Yeah.
I would like that to be an official title. Can I do that?
Can you do, I think so. I think so.
Well, okay.
Yeah, I'll give you that. Please.
Yeah, I will be on my ass so fast. Okay.
Viral web review. What is trending these days?
Okay, so the next web, and pretty much everybody else, is literally blowing up about the planned. It has been rumored for a while about the diversification of emojis.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Right.
Okay.
Look at this.
Benetton has taken over. Wow. Yeah. No. What do you have to say?
There is
Listen,
so much to be.
We should be PC.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't even a single black emoji. There was
really wasn't?
The closest thing was the Indian guy in a turban.
True.
That was it.
And when do you use the Indian guy with a turban as an emoji?
I cannot say that. I cannot say that out loud. I am ashamed of.
Don't say that loud.
I am ashamed of when I use the black.
When do you use the?
I am
Indian
ashamed
guy?
to admit. Okay. Don't pressure me.
Yeah, I will not.
I collapse easily. But.
Does this come because of pressure, international pressure to diversify emojis?
I wouldn't go. It wasn't as dramatic. There certainly were some petitions. I think it's more of a getting with the times, understanding which way the wind is blowing, understanding what kind of change would make customers happy.
That's true.
Then
not everything is a young blonde girl in a black dress.
What?
Not everything is a young blonde girl in a black dress.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, standing sideways.
Yes.
Okay.
Two of them.
Okay.
But I am still wondering if they're including an emoji of a Chinese child constructing an iPhone. Or has that been skipped over? None of that. Also, I am.
Moving along, though. Yes.
Fine, go ahead.
Yes. What
Our
else?
friend Bill O'Reilly.
Oh, yes.
Have you? Yes, you're happy.
I have no idea, but I love Bill O'Reilly stuff.
Okay,
yeah.
of course you do.
Yeah.
But he has been threatened, the New York Times reporter, with the wonderful quote, "I am coming after you with everything I have. I will destroy you."
Oh, God.
I know. Context, or can we just enjoy it on its own?
No, first moment of silence.
Let's enjoy this.
I'm
Let's
coming
just enjoy
after you
with everything I have, and I will destroy you.
Okay.
If he does not like the way the story comes out, and the story is following on the heels of the whole Brian Williams debacle.
Yes.
You may have heard that he allegedly over-reported his presence in the Falklands War.
And also in Iraq.
Yeah.
Oh, no, but sorry, Bill O'Reilly allegedly, yes.
O'Reilly on Falklands, Williams on Iraq.
Yeah.
But what happened is he now says that when he wrote he was covering Falklands, he meant the conflict and not the islands.
Can I say something as a journalist who has covered conflict zones? We all embellish stuff, come on. I claim I caught Saddam. I was 20 feet away. It's not, isn't that what journalists do?
Go ahead, but have you ever told anyone except me that you will come with everything you have and will destroy me?
No, but it might be a line that I will use. Okay, I will come after you. My God, that's a news anchor.
You have used that on me. What are you talking about?
I have no idea. Yeah, but moving along, next.
I know I am embellishing. Okay, yes. This is unpleasant. A lawsuit.
Yes.
Alleging that no, this is not funny. This is not funny. This is not funny.
Okay. A lawsuit.
They have allegedly killed 4,000 dogs with what may have been toxic food.
That's awful.
There's not even a recall yet.
There's not. That Purina food is still out there.
It's still out there. The lawsuit is just like in its diapers right now. What they originally thought. I mean, people behind the lawsuit said they originally suspected a chemical called propylene glycol, but now they've sent it to lab analysis, and it's apparently some sort of mold fungus.
No, but the fact that, never mind the detail, the fact that that's not still out there, and I'm thinking out loud right now, I so hate my pet that I'm thinking of buying Purina. But,
It's a cat.
It's a cat, I know.
It's dog food.
It's the dog, but it acts like...
That's real hate. That's real hate right there.
That's real hate. That's right. I will come after you with everything I've got.
I will come after you with Purina. I will poison you.
Yes. Okay, one last one.
Okay, so Microsoft has successfully predicted the Oscar winners, which is creepy.
Every single one?
No, they missed 6 in all of them. And, No, they missed 4, I'm sorry. And they got the whole top 6.
Okay.
Movie, director, actors. Right.
Who was betting on what? That's my question. That's that's a fascinating thing. So Microsoft knew in advance who's going to win the Oscars, basically.
No, Microsoft ran some prediction engine,
right?
Which what it does, it analyzes trends. Like, you know, like everybody knows that the Oscars have like a second wind.
Exactly.
Boyhood was too hyped early on. It lost out to Birdman because it wasn't as worn out on the viewers.
Very true. And by the way, this is something that, you know, Kling and I can discuss for hours. Sharon Perry's looking at her watch going, when can I leave? Which is sadly
TikTok.
all the time we have.
All right.
You know, and do not forget, of course, to stay with us, because coming up, more interesting stuff about, I forget not, but it's, yes! Speaking of superheroes, they also died at the Oscars. Stick with us. First, the news. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. I-24 Morning Edition, where you stuck around for the last 1 hour and a half. Good for you. And you should have. because we are joined by the one and only Daniel Zeri of the Focus magazine, and of course also from the Culture magazine. Why don't you introduce yourself?
I'm Avi Rosenzweig. Good morning. You forgot my name, didn't you?
I did not. I did Avi, I forgot the last name. But nice one. Avi wasn't sweet, there we go. Daniel Zeri, we're going to start with, as I always like to say, brains before beauty. Daniel.
Aww. I'm getting too many compliments every time I come here. It's like really bad.
But Focus Magazine.
Yes, Focus Magazine. This week, we're taking you to Ukraine. We decided it was time to talk a little bit about Ukraine.
The war that will not go away.
Lots of things going on. Unfortunately, situation still very unstable despite the recent ceasefire in place. Fighting in the east of Ukraine is still going on. Of course, much less than it was before because some troops have retired from the areas. But yes, it's still going on. Sporadic shots and things like that.
It's the second ceasefire, I think, that is
absolutely.
Kind of
and nothing seems to work.
Stick.
Nothing seems to stick together long enough to make this go away. The European countries practically had to force Putin and Poroshenko into this agreement. Situation also in a humanitarian aspect on the field is really bad. People are living without electricity, without food, without water for several weeks now. So it's really not going well for them on the field. And we talked about it with a journalist in Kiev. We wanted to see if he thinks that things are, you know, what can make the ceasefire work? Because for now, it just seems to be not worth so much more than a piece of paper. Let's see what he has to say.
Vladimir, the ceasefire, which was agreed upon in the Minsk Accord, obviously did not last. Let me ask you this. Could it be that the European leaders, the European Union leaders are misreading the situation there?
It's possible that they are misreading the situation, but it's also possible that the European leaders are not willing to apply more pressure on Russia, because the latest Minsk negotiations, the latest Minsk meeting, which regarding the ceasefire in Ukraine, it involved the Russian president, along with the Ukrainian president, the European leaders, and that means that the EU leaders realize that they have to talk to the Russian president to make sure the ceasefire is achieved in eastern Ukraine. However, what apparently they do not realize or are not willing to do is to apply more pressure, to apply harsher measures, apply more sanctions on Russia, or even, as the talks have been lasting several weeks, supply Ukraine with lethal defense weapons.
Now, Daniel Zeri, obviously still with us of the Focus magazine. When we listen to things like that, was there within this piece any kind of understanding of what the reaction of the Ukrainian people was? Were they disappointed? Because there was a lot of push at the beginning by the Ukrainians, I believe, for the West to arm the Ukrainian army, and that's not on the table anymore.
Absolutely. It was on the table. It was actually one of the arguments that Angela Merkel used during the negotiations, saying, look, the U.S. wants to arm Ukraine. If we're not getting into a ceasefire, there's going to be a much worse situation here. But the Ukrainian people on the street, and Vladimir, that you've seen right now in the
Kiev.
little soundbite in Kiev, told us that this is what they were hoping for. They really wanted for the U.S. or the European countries to arm the Ukrainian army, to help the Ukrainian army fight those pro-Russian militants.
No, or as you know, off camera, in the studio, as Avi Rosen-Zvi here, full name, said, if we discuss why this did not happen, because nobody cares. I mean, you know, it's sad to say it that way. The West seems to have given up.
They are, yeah.
So, and the West seems to have given up.
And it's also a lot of interest that they have with Russia and things that they don't want to, you know, get into right now and not open up that Pandora box.
Meaning that it seems like Putin is getting his way. And what does that mean for in the Ukraine? We can't tell. But we have to remember that all of this, as you said to me before we started, you know, this has been going on for a year. I call it the war that will not go away. It didn't start like a war. It started actually like a civil uprising in the Ukraine, a place that knew the Orange Revolution about a decade ago. And still, you know, it started in Maidan exactly a year ago, right?
Absolutely. Actually, it started just like, you know, the social protests in Tel Aviv started with some tents. In Maidan Square, the Independence Square, central square in Maidan, in Kiev. Actually, it became an iconic square and a symbol of the Ukrainian Revolution. But basically, originally, what it started with was there was an agreement to sign with the European Union, and the president at the time, pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych, didn't want to sign this agreement. He refused to sign it, which made the Ukrainian, especially the young generation, think, we're not getting anywhere. We want to get closer to Europe. Our government is preventing us from doing that. They protested, and it started by a little bit of a camp there on the square, and it just degenerated into a full-blown war. And we actually talked to one of the people who was at Maidan Square at the time.
When it all began.
Yeah, a young militant, pro-European militant. Her name is Lesia. I suggest we watch what she says.
Let's have a listen.
Lesia, what has changed within the political discourse in your country after you guys took to the streets exactly 1 year ago?
Well, I would say that as we were there, the main issue we were concerned about is our future and the future of Ukraine as a European country. So the protest started as the Euromaidan. We were for signing the agreement, the association agreement with the EU. After the people were forced away from Maidan, we stand up also for the people's rights, actually, and for our right to protest and to have our own opinion and to have the future which we would like to have, not just which is suggested by our politicians and political leaders at that time. At the moment, those questions are also very important, and they are on the list, but I think the most important question is the war situation, because it's kind of like the main issue. It's about the future as well, and it's about Ukrainian independence, so like how the country will develop itself.
Coming back to you, yes.
Yes. Well, as you've seen, she talks about the beginnings of it all and how they didn't think this was gonna become a war. But she also says that it has changed dramatically. Things have changed dramatically inside the political discourse in Ukraine, especially the people themselves. They are much more involved in their future, in their politics. They're much more active. They go out to the streets, they protest, and even some of the people who were with her in Maidan Square a year ago became members of the parliament in the elections. So it's much like the social protests here.
I was about to say, you know, like the social protests in Israel, the people that we see like Stav Shafir, who are currently now leading, you know,
Stav Shafir, all these people are now decision makers.
Which is what you want to see in many ways.
Absolutely.
You want to see them moving into a course that can make political decisions. But I mean, fascinating stuff, because as you mentioned, Ukraine, a story that's not going away. But this is on Focus when?
Tonight, after the evening edition.
Lovely. So we, first of all, remember to watch it, folks. An in-depth look at the Ukraine story that everybody's trying to make sense of. Daniel Zier, you are locked in studio with us. As we move to the most important bit of the day. I say that to everyone. Avri, don't worry.
No,
she does.
I really
does.
I know. Don't believe a word I say. Avri, of the Culture magazine. Rosen-Zvi. There you go. What do you have for us today?
Well, you know, as we talk about this conflict, this really painful conflict, we have to remember a different conflict that raged on in Israel in the beginning of the 80s. One between two singers, Ofra Chaza,
yes,
we're going to talk about today, and Yardena Arazi. Not many people know that.
Battle of the Titans.
That was the real battle. That was painful.
No,
that went away.
They went. That's why. Yeah, that went away. I remember. I got to tell you, I'm fascinated you're bringing this up because I was in 6th grade when the battle was in, you know, and I got to say I was an Ofra Chaza girl myself.
That's good. Well, it's been 15 years since Ofra Chaza died tragically.
Yeah.
We have a story prepared by Daniel Campos about the phenomenon. Let's watch that.
Let's take a look.
The day Ofra Chaza died, thousands attended her funeral in the Yarkon cemetery of Petah Tikva. Elite and working-class multitudes gathered to pay their condolences. Ofra was a Jew whose family came from Yemen. She rose from poverty to stardom through her innate talent and exotic beauty. Today, she continues to inspire her fans 15 years after her death.
I try to honor her in every way possible. Throughout the years, I collected everything. It's important for young people and old to remember her.
Russian-born Haya, who currently manages Ofra's Fans Club Facebook page, owes a lot of her identity to Ofra.
Ofra has always been a person respecting tradition and respecting her roots and really much talking about it all over the world. Like in each concert that she had, maybe in the US or in Japan or in Germany or in Russia, she always talked about her Jewish heritage.
Today, Haya pays back the favor by working hard to preserve her memory alive.
Here's a legacy, here's something worth of remembering, worth of listening to.
February the 23rd is an important day to visit the landmarks of the singer's life, such as her childhood home in Boaz 39, today considered patrimony. For some residents in the neighborhood, memories of Ofra's presence remain alive.
I remember the day Ofra Chaza got married in the neighborhood. She arrived on a white horse and the entire street closed down for the wedding.
Ofra's popularity began in the 1970s with the Hatikva Neighborhood Workshop Theater under the wing of her manager, Betzalel Aloni. Her major international career would kick off with her 1983 Eurovision performance. Thanks to her album Songs of Yemen, released in 1984 on UK's Globestyle Records. In 1998, Ofra also had her taste of Hollywood when she voiced Yocheved, the Prince of Egypt, and also sang Deliver Us, composed by Hans Zimmer. On this year's memorial, Ofra's brother, Yair, has good news for her fans.
We want to produce an album with songs that she never released, which she recorded in her last year of life. It's her musical inheritance.
Okay. Joined in studio by Avri.
Yeah.
No, but this is, I think, you know, what I love about the story is that I don't think people realize how incredibly huge this woman was.
Yeah, you know, she died as the top-selling Israeli artist of all time. She was well on her way to an international career, you know, in the
almost there already,
in the 80s.
You know, almost.
She was there, but
didn't she do something with Madonna also? Or Madonna used one of her remixes.
Yeah, there was a thing, and being picked by Spielberg for the movie was very big. But you know, she turned down Michael Jackson, who wanted her to open for him in some concert. It was like she was very big, and you know. And what's left of Yardena Arazi, really? What's left of her?
A morning show. I gotta tell you.
Yeah.
A morning show. But you know,
so it's time for your record, for your world.
Exactly, and that will be my next one. I will be voicing, Pocahontas in the next Disney movie.
That said,
moving on. What else do you have?
Yeah, we're moving on to another big strife. That between Hollywood and lovers of, not Hollywood, let's say like the Hollywood elite.
Yes.
And people who love superhero movies.
Okay.
Yeah.
What happened to them?
Well, some people got the feeling that the Oscars took cheap shots at superhero movies. Well, it started with Tony Gilroy at the Independent Spirit Awards.
Right.
He won an award, and he said that we're seeing way too many superhero movies.
Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree. I would agree.
Yeah.
And then at the Oscars, some people talked about, you know, how Hollywood is turning into superhero movies. But interestingly enough, the Wrap, an Oscar season blog, they noted that 9 out of 20 actor nominees have appeared or will appear in superhero movies.
Of course, because you got to make a living.
Yeah,
which is usually what I think when I'm offered a $30 million role. You know, as
which you turn down on a
regular
basis.
Automatically, exactly, automatically, because, you know, come on.
But you know, it was very interesting because James Gunn, director of the summer's hugely successful Guardians of the Galaxy, talked in Facebook about this, and he says, you know, here's what I disagree with. He said, the idea that the people who make like these small independent movies really care about them and we just do it for the money is like, he says, that's offensive to me, because he says, like, he says, I've made B movies, independent films, children's movies, horror films, and gigantic spectacles. I found there are plenty of people everywhere making movies for a buck or to feed their own vanity, and then there are people who do what they do because they love storytelling, they love cinema, and they want to add to the world some of the same magic they take into the work of others.
You know what, I tend to agree with it, but, you know, we're not intellectual snobs here. Never will be. That sometimes good, clean, big, blockbuster fun is just fun. You know, there we have it.
Sometimes it is, but sometimes the movies that are supposedly, like, Theory of Everything, nominated for Oscars. It was fluff. Have you seen that movie? It was total fluff.
No, sadly all the time we have, but you heard it here first. According to Avli, the Theory of Everything was total fluff.
Guardians of the Galaxy, a better film.
Do not forget to watch the Culture Magazine tonight. Check us out tomorrow morning, I-24 News Morning Show. We're the place you have to be every single morning because that's where Avi says these amazing things. Of course, stay with us. We'll see you tomorrow.